This tutorial is for mile marker 3, practice 1, question 5. In question 5, we can observe that we're given a side and an angle of our triangle, and we're looking for another missing side. So again, this pattern should be a clue to us that we're going to use trigonometry. And I know we talked about this a lot in question 4, but we're going to go over it again. If we are using trigonometry, we're always using either sine, cosine, or tangent. And it's always the sine of the angle, or the cosine of the angle, or the tangent of the angle. So what I need to identify here is whether I'm dealing with an opposite and an adjacent, an opposite and a hypotenuse, or an adjacent and a hypotenuse. So if we take a look at the angle, or the triangle rather, you can see that what we're solving for is the hypotenuse. And the hypotenuse never changes. That's always going to be what's directly across from this, directly opposite this right angle. So then I have to decide, is 41 the opposite side or the adjacent side to 23? And remember, this depends on really which angle I'm looking at, this angle or this one. So in this case, 41 is opposite because it's directly opposite that angle, and this would have been our adjacent side. All right, so since we are solving for the hypotenuse using the opposite side, that's going to be our sine function. So we're going to use the ratio of the opposite over the hypotenuse to do this. All right, so the first step is to set up the trig statement correctly. So I'm going to say that the sine of 23, the sine of 23 is equal to, and then we're going to do the ratio of opposite over hypotenuse. So 41 over x. All right, so that's our statement, but we can't plug that into the calculator like that. So what I would recommend you do is let's go ahead and make this a proportion by just putting a 1 under sine of 23. So now, if I look at this proportion, if my cross products are 1 and x, it's really easy to cross multiply, but my cross products are not 1 and x. My cross products are 1 and 41 and sine 23 and x. I don't want to cross multiply here because I would just end up with x times the sine of 23, and that's not going to help me out either. But what I can do is I can switch anything diagonally in a proportion. So earlier you learned about the cross means property, but you really can cross the extremes as well. So we can switch these out and rewrite this statement over here. So when I rewrite this, I could say this proportion is still true if I write it as x over 1 equals 41 divided by the sine of 23. All right, so x over 1, that's the same as just saying x. This, 41 divided by the sine of 23, this is what I'm going to plug into my calculator. So when I do that, I'll just type in 41 divided by sine of 23, and the calculator will do the rest. So what I should get is 104 and 931 thousandths. So that's my final answer. Do make sure that you are rounding correctly to that third decimal place. And there you go.